All right, everybody. Glad to have you here. We've got me, the prettiest, Shane Silvers here with Cameron O'Connell. And he's, I guess, if you're watching this, he's to my right. He's on the top. And then we've got Ty Burson on the bottom. Cameron O'Connell is the author of the Phantom Queen Diaries and the Echoes of Ventlight series. And Ty Burson is the author of A Shoplifter's Guide to Wizardry and the Modern Dragon Chronicles, which he also writes. So if you guys have any questions, just go ahead and post them in the comments. We're looking at YouTube and Facebook and the different groups, and so we should see all of them come through. But especially if there's any difficult questions or complicated questions or long questions or specific questions, it can be about the books, certain characters, stories, writing in general, anything you want. So just post them all in the comments, and I'm actually going to be playing moderator in this one so that Cameron and Ty can really just start talking about their work and their new releases, and they've got a bunch of exciting stuff. So without further ado, I'm going to step back and I'll be posting the links and stuff like that. And then I'll come back to answer any questions you have for me at the end. So, but post questions for these guys. They're way more important than me. And with that, I'm going to get into the background. So have fun, guys.
All right. Thank you, Shane. So I'm going to jump in here. I want to congratulate you both, actually, since I have Cameron here especially. That's funny. I want to congratulate you on Snakebite. Everything that I've read about it is the reviews are wonderful. You've totally blown people's minds.
Thank you very much.
They're going on and on and on and on about it. So I haven't read it. I stopped reading the Quinn books after I think 5, but I think I read the first 5. But I haven't read Quinn in a while, so I'd be totally lost. But
yeah, as soon as you said I read the first 5, I was like, oh, then you have a pretty good idea. And then I was like, I've written another, I guess 8 now after that. Yeah. It's like, oh yeah, no wait, there's probably a lot more. There's a lot more out there. That's pretty wild. No, yeah, it's doing really well, and I'm very, very happy about it. If there's a reference point for your generation, and it seems very consistent that your generation is picking up on this reference point, it's Quantum Leap. Everybody's doing a real deep dive on the Quantum Leap comparison, which I find very amusing because I see it, but I actually don't know that I've ever seen a full episode of Quantum Leap. So I think maybe there's just so many things that were derived from it that's where it sits. But
your childhood was deprived.
Yeah, well, somebody was to blame for that. So I was just gonna say the same to you. So equally, it seems like you don't have a book out currently, or no, actually, no, it dropped today, didn't it?
In the through the Argento publishing end of it, yes.
Correct.
I think it will come on Amazon early July.
That's great. So this will be book number 5 for you, yes?
Correct. Yep.
Right. So what I was going to ask, because I've picked up the beginning of your first one, right? Like I've read through the first book. But I figured it would be a good opportunity for you to just give a little spiel for anybody that's coming for Shane or I who have yet to see your series or have yet to pick up your series for whatever reason. Maybe you could just go ahead and give them a little spiel about what your series is and why they should pick it up.
So I don't think I set out initially to say I'm going to write this fantasy series in the 80s and whatnot. It just kind of came together in a couple different pieces. I was working on a character through another series, and that didn't really pan out, but I really liked this character so much that I wanted to do something with her. And then I started thinking about, well, what time frame would fit and things like that. And the 80s just popped into mind because really that was the last time that I had unlimited freedom. So I thought, well, I can write really well to that because
was it 1988 and before?
Yeah, and before for sure. Yeah,
that sounds about right.
Actually, 86 if you want to get technical.
Okay, yeah, that's good. Blame it on
all the burdens of having children came along later. But anyway,
I don't know anything about that.
So it was kind of fresh in my mind of all the things that I had done, the mistakes that I'd made. And it was a very different world in so many ways that people that lived through it should be nostalgic for it. And people that haven't are probably going, wow, how did they do that back then? Or what was that like? And then there was a degree
without cell phones.
Yeah, exactly. Well, there's a degree of freedom that you had to make mistakes and they didn't follow you forever. So lots of mistakes to be made. So this series is really, that was the genesis for that, but also the idea of the fantastical and the magic set in the ordinary.
Mhm.
And that interplay is what I really, really enjoy. The fact that you have these strange, amazing things that are sitting right in the middle of a convenience store or things like that. So if it's somebody who is at all curious about the 80s or reminiscent about the 80s, and you like complex, flawed characters that mess up but are still endearing, and quirky characters and magic and that sort of thing, I think it's a series that you'd really enjoy.
It sounds like it's really up the alley for the people that read our stuff. So, yep. So if you haven't already, you'll see in all the different things that we're going to be posting here, but as well as on Facebook. I think there are listed posts for book 5 being direct released on Argento, and it's also available on Amazon for a July 5th launch. Correct?
Yeah, I think so.
Yep, and it'll be available on KU, assuming Amazon doesn't screw up. All right. Yep, absolutely. So, would you like to see your grandson now?
Are you in your living room right now?
Give me 1 second. I'll go grab him.
So while we're waiting, I can show you something neat. Now he's going to bring out my grandson, which might be a surprise to some of you guys. If you want to see what Cameron looked like when he was little tiny. Oh, there's a picture. I don't know if you can see that. That's a picture of Cameron. So when he brings little pony boy on here, you can kind of compare and say, huh, does that look like his son?
All right, back in the room.
Excuse my music room. It's a mess.
Give me 1 second. I'm grabbing Kitten dummy for him in case he goes and has a full-on meltdown.
I think we might have surprised a couple people, though. If they ever look at us,
I would hope so.
I mean, better looking version of you.
He looks like you. I mean, just look at all this hair.
That's true. He's got the same bald spot.
Oh, you are unhappy already.
Boy, AKA Pony Boy.
Fun fact is that right now it is 6 p.m. our time, which means it is late, and we are winding down on our our joy. But this is the baby.
Yeah, that's the giant.
Yeah.
This is the child that's so far off the charts, it's not even on the charts anymore. Is that right?
Yeah. So were you telling them that we were father and son and revealing?
Well, I did. I showed the picture that I had up there of your mom and you and I years ago when I was in the military, and so they could see you. But you were about you had to be a toddler at that point, so it'd be a little while before.
I had bright blonde hair.
Yeah,
it's something I'm interested to see if he ends up with is that platinum blonde hair. All right, I'm gonna let him go just so that he can go ahead and hang out and not be touted.
I'll see you in a couple of weeks.
Yep. So you'll be visiting us here in Scotland for our delayed wedding. I'm letting the audience know at the same time because obviously he knows that he's going to be here, and we'll have the whole family over. So kind of a wild revelation. And just so we're clear, and I'll say this now so that everybody from the fan base knows, this was not intended as a secret. It was very much something that my father and I expected would kind of come out quite quickly.
I figure we would have been outed a long time ago, and we just didn't really make a big deal out of it. And lo and behold, the people that are on the common media platforms and stuff just never really noticed.
No, and
attention.
Well, and I fully expected that we were going to be doing something with Friendsgiving. That we'd all be meeting up, and that it'd be pretty hard for us to kind of maintain a we're not related conversation while we were engaged with other people. And so I fully expected that it would just come out then. But of course, COVID happened. And just kept delaying, and we've yet to have another Friendsgiving altogether. So just so people know, it wasn't designed to be some sort of like crazy big secret. It was just one of those things where we were like, we'll announce it when we're ready to. So
Yeah.
with
I'm
that in
not
mind,
really Darth Vader, so
yeah, a little bit. I hope people get that kind of revelation from it. That'd be fantastic. So I'm gonna just go ahead and go into some questions for my dad, for Ty, about himself and his series, just as a kind of like a primer for anybody, like I said, who is coming to it and doesn't know who he is or hasn't been able to pick up his books yet, who might be interested. Maybe people who have read all the books, but they don't know much about you. For one reason or another. So I'm just going to go ahead and start with some questions, and we'll work through those. And then once my dad and I are done, Shane will chime in and ask any questions that have been posted in the comments to either Ty, my dad, or myself. And as long as you're good with that, Dad, we'll get started.
Sounds great.
Awesome. So for starters, why don't you go ahead and tell people a little bit about yourself? Just, a little bit about your career background, and how long you've been writing and so on.
So presently I'm a middle school teacher. I've been doing that I just finished my 18th year. I kind of came to it a little bit late because I was in the military for about 10 years. I started off as a Russian linguist. Met my wife there. We had some kids all over the world, one of them in front of you. We had this one in Germany. We had another one in Japan. We had another one in Kansas. We had another one in Oregon. And then after 3 girls, I decided it was time for a vasectomy, and I stopped doing that. But we've lived all over the place. I've been a manager. I've always been super creative. I was thinking back about this, if I was going to describe the whole writing, and I actually think I've been writing my whole life, because even as a kid, I drew a lot, and I made my own comics, my own storylines, and my own things like that. After I went into teaching, or actually prior to that, when I first left the Air Force, the active duty Air Force, I tried my hand at a book. It really wasn't very good, but it was a great first experience, and it got me thinking about writing. And then after I became a teacher, I had an idea for a set of books, A Boy with a Stutter That Talks to Dragons. And I wrote those, and I had a little indie publisher publish me. And we did that for a while. And then I kind of set it aside. And then I came back around to this. But always, I have a short attention span. So I'm always building things or trying to play music, not very well, trying to play music or writing or things like that. So so I keep busy. Probably drove most people that know me crazy because I don't sit still for anything. But I have these wonderful kids, and they've turned into wonderful adults. And I said, you've got one of them who's a great writer in front of you, and then I've got my daughters are super successful, and my wife's a scientist, and that was such a good move marrying her, because her earning potential has finally come to fruition. She's doing so well. I'm so proud of her. She's the reason why I have more than one instrument back here, even though I probably don't.
The reason you're allowed to build things is, I think, more accurate.
Yeah, that's true. So that in a nutshell, that I guess that's me.
Yeah, no, that's great. It's just a piggyback and all. It's just we'll get back to the Q&A component in just a second, but I'll give you guys a little rundown of how that plays out for me. So he says he's a linguist. I grew up my entire life telling everybody my parents were spies, because in my mind, and in order to make myself sound cooler, I basically said, because my mother was a Russian linguist as well, and that's how they met, was that they were in Germany spying on Russians during the Cold War when I was born. So I tell people all the time that my parents were spies, and I'm not technically wrong, but it sounds a lot cooler. And then my dad mentioned that he does art and comics. And if any of you have seen my work in Cinders and Salt or anything I've posted, because I've done drawings and stuff like that, the answer is yes, I've gotten that from him. We're both left-handed, if that interests any of you. And it has basically inspired my own kind of creative process, is having my dad from a very young age constantly drawing different things. I believe the best part of being a kid with you was going in and saying, I've read this book, I have this character in my head, could you draw him for me? and having you actually say yes and then do it and have it be even better than anything I could have imagined was always really great. And then for those of you who are also following, as far as career trajectories go, I was also in the military for kind of similar reasons, Air Force. I worked with my dad for about 4 or 5 of the years just before he retired. So that was a great experience. And then I picked up the teaching bug as well. I didn't actually end up, going full on, if only because I started publishing books with Shane. But yeah, kind of a wild, if you think about kind of parallel trajectories. Okay, so I'll move on to the question part. I just wanted to give everybody a little rundown because I thought it was kind of an interesting parallel component. How has being a teacher influenced your work? How would you, and not just a teacher, I guess, any of the jobs that you've had?
So I think at some point you get to a point in life where you can really look back and you can draw from so many experiences. So things that I want to write in my books and I put in my books might be set in places where I've lived, or some of the very interesting people that I've met that you don't steal anybody lock, stock, and barrel, but you take aspects of them and, oh, I remember this person, the way they reacted and so forth. So I think that defines it. The fact that I teach, middle grades, I'm sure it influenced why I have this character being on the young side, because she's about 18, 19 years old right now, though I don't envision her staying that way permanently. And her experiences are going to kind of age her, even if she's not chronologically at that point yet. Right. But and a lot of what I read over the last 18 years is there's a lot of YA type books that that have obviously influenced my writing. It has to, and some of that was purposeful in that at one point, I think when I was writing the Dragon books, which were juvenile fiction made for even younger kids, I really wanted to get a better feel for that age. So I went for 2 or 3 years there where I read every YA book series that you can imagine. And there's a lot of really good things that I took from it. You won't see all of those things in the series that I have. It doesn't dwell in some of the the romantic, emotional kinds of things that I didn't really want to get into that so much. So, but there are aspects of that certainly influence where I've gone with this. Absolutely.
Absolutely. So would you say that in terms of like contemporaries or competition, who would you compare yourself to? Who would you most like to write like? Just so that, say some people are coming in from a completely fresh perspective, and they're saying, what's your stuff like, or what would I be, kind of getting into?
I think that's hard for me. There are definitely writers, Brandon Sanderson for sure. If I could write YA or anything as well as that guy does, it would be fantastic. I'm trying to think of some of the, some of the writers that, well, again, it's hard for me because the reality is that so many books that I like are more complex than what I write. I write a very intimate, it's a, primary character with lots of, secondary characters and stuff they interact with, but it's this character's story. Right. And it's very linear. So I'm not even going like many authors will, where I'm going to focus this chapter on this character. I'm going to move to this chapter and talk to this character and that sort of thing. So I just don't see a lot of that in this, in what I'm doing. Kendara Blake's like Anna Dressed in Red, I read some time ago, and it kind of maybe has a little bit of a feel like that. Only it's not quite so much the romance part. And again, I'm not saying that Anna doesn't have romantic partners or whatnot, because she does. It's just not the focal point for me.
Does that series have a female main character as well?
Yes.
Yeah. What was the kind of
actually I take
a logic choice for you?
I'm sorry.
Well, so what was the logic choice for you choosing? Because when I did it with Shane, it was a discussion of I think I could have gone either way, male or female, but I ended up choosing female. But it was an active choice. I have to presume that choosing Jen was also an active choice. So why did you pick a female protagonist as opposed to a male protagonist for your series?
Well, again, Jen I came up with her when I was working on something else, a different project. So she was going to be part of something larger. So she was actually going to be a vehicle for these other things that were going on. But I liked her character so much. I found her so gritty, and I found so many things about her that reminded me of these really fantastic girls that I knew back in the 80s and stuff, that I wanted to steal a little bit of that. So I just went with her, and it just,
There she is. There she is.
there are just things about her that I really like. And I know I'm going to get some criticism from, she makes a lot of really dumb mistakes. Yes, but who didn't make a lot of dumb mistakes when you were 18, 19 years old?
There she is. Got it. Sorry, I kept trying to point at this, and I couldn't figure out which direction I needed to point. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, that's why it was purposeful. Once I had that in mind. I have another series in my head that I've done some work on, and it's a male character. He's a Native American, African American mixed kid. That he's a compilation of kids that I've known, and he's super strong. And he just burst into my head. And Jen was kind of the same way. She just came fully formed, and that's why I chose her.
That's great. That's great. How many books do you think this series is going to end up being?
And it's funny, when I first talked to Shane about it, I was thinking, we could do 6 to 9, but as I've gone with it, and the time frame is so compressed, it really has. I'm not taking a year between books. It literally has been. This started in the summer for her, and we're about to the next summer for her, and we're on book 6.
Right.
So I think, but I have an idea where I want to go with it.
Right.
I think I would like to do something where I continue move her through the 80s, maybe into the 90s.
Okay.
But at some point, I want to bring her forward.
Okay, take her to present day.
Right, contemporary times. So,
so kind of like a Rick Riordan jump, where you're getting a completely different kind of launch point for a story, but with some of the same tangential characters.
Yeah. And I think that would be really interesting, because there's a lot of fun things that I could do with our situation in the world we live in now, with some of these characters. So I think basically the storyline that I'm on right now, probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 9 to 12 books.
Right.
And then if the fans are still enjoying it and it's still doing well, then I think I would think about bringing her forward. Great.
No, that's really cool. Okay, so I'm just going to ask one last question, and then we'll flip it over to Shane, and then he can go ahead and kind of direct any more questions that fans have had. I'm sure the reveal will have spawned a lot of random comments. And that is, why'd you decide to change your last name from O'Connell to Burson?
Well, once I had my firstborn, I was so ashamed of the way he looked. I just couldn't continue with the name any longer. So I tried to hide. And
I didn't, guys, just so you know, I didn't prep him with that question at all. He didn't know that I was going to ask him that. No, so I'll explain, because I'm sure it'll pop up as a question. So my last name is Burson. We have the same last name. When I was first starting out with Shane, I was still teaching, and I wasn't sure what direction I was going to go with the books. And I have a prior modeling career with the same last name, with Burson. So I wanted to kind of separate the two things. So when I was coming up with names, I wanted to do a nom de plume, because people, weirdly, I mean, I hate that this is the case, but sometimes there is a bit of an issue with teaching and publishing, and what you're publishing and what you're teaching and at what levels. And I don't think that was ever going to really come into conflict, but just to kind of be safe, I thought it was a good idea to go ahead and use a different a nom de plume when I was publishing with Shane. So just for everybody's edification, my name is Cameron Burson, although pretty soon it'll be something completely different, because I'm taking my wife's.
Why not? Hey, three
She's
names.
got a cooler last name.
Yeah. Why not?
She does. She's got a Scottish ass last name. So I'm going to be taking a clan name. Well, I've already married her, so really I just haven't done the paperwork, because paperwork sucks.
And let's face it. Let's be truthful. She's very impressive.
Yeah,
you're punching way above your weight.
Yeah. Who do you think I got that from?
Okay, we'll be ending this now.
All right. So Shane, if you want to jump back on and just ask questions, or if you just want to be kind of a voice in the sky, whatever works for you.
All right. So that's crazy news, man. I was gonna try and feign like I had no idea, but I couldn't on the spot. Like I'm more of like just I guess that would be on the spot, but I knew it was coming, so I just kind of like psyched myself out. So
yeah, we probably shouldn't have warned you at all that we were gonna do it.
Yeah, as you say, instead I was,
and then you could have pretended like you had no idea.
Yeah, I was just trolling in the comments instead. But no, that's crazy. So I have a question before I start reading some of these. Excuse me. So it's a riddle I heard once, and I thought it was interesting. 2 fathers and 2 sons go fishing, and they catch 3 fish. And the oldest son says, "Is this enough?" And they say, "Yeah, that should be fine. That's enough for everyone to have one." How is that possible?
Throw one of the kids overboard?
That was my response. It's much cleaner, much easier.
2 men and 2 sons, right?
2 fathers and 2 sons.
2 fathers and 2 sons. And the oldest one says, "I have no idea."
It ties directly into what you just did and what you just showed on screen. It's the grandfather.
There you go. That makes sense.
Grandfather, a father, and a son. It was exactly what you just showed.
My way would have worked just fine.
Yeah, you won't be taking care of my son when you come to Scotland.
I like them when they're walking and, you know.
Go ahead.
Yeah, when they're full grown people.
Yeah, like 5 to 12. That's the sweet spot.
Yeah. So I've been told. Although at this point, I don't know that I buy it. I'm thinking like it's all a level playing field. I don't know that there's an up or a down tick. I'm gonna like it when he starts liking the shows I want to watch. Whatever age that is. Once we're at the point where it's like, hey, I want to play a video game. You want to play a video game? And we play video games like that. That sounds great. I mean, presuming my wife lets us play video games.
Oh, no. It's you're gonna like the shows that he likes.
No, I'm not.
That's what's gonna happen.
I'm not. I will watch them, but I promise you I won't like the shows. I say that.
Watch
it's like some of the younger ones are fine.
You can't stand it any longer.
You have to pretend to like them at least.
Right.
Otherwise, they're going to be like, "Well, I don't like it either." Then.
Yeah, that's fair.
And then they won't watch anything.
And then we don't watch anything. It's
exactly
all the Yell channel.
Yep. So
yeah.
Did you? I don't know if you mentioned. I was too busy trying to figure out how Lane does this job in the background. I don't know if you mentioned what's going on next week. I think you did, right? Or not next week, but a couple of weeks.
Yeah. So my wife and I were supposed to get married in Scotland 3-ish years ago, but because of COVID, we couldn't. So we basically just pushed everything and we're turning into like a big party. And having a bunch of people from the U.S. and a bunch of our family here all come out, which includes obviously my dad and mom and sisters. And it's going to be a big old castle wedding with kilts and swords and just like the full bit. So it should be.
I've been doing calf raises.
You got to make the
you got to make the calves presentable.
Yeah, that's it. That's honestly, it's so funny. Putting on the full regalia is like, I said to my wife, I said, this is the most forgiving outfit I've ever seen. Like it's weird to say, but like you're wearing a big skirt. So like your legs aren't really showing until like just the knees to the socks. And then your top half, like you're cinching your belly, you know what I mean? With the kilt. You've got like 3 layers on your chest to make you puff up. And I was like, this is going to be good for me. I don't really have to do much. I just have to show up. So I like it.
I got the one with bling all up the sleeves and everything that, you know, your mom was totally embarrassed and said, you can't wear that. What do you mean? It looks great.
You're only going to wear it once. So why not?
I know, exactly.
The thing about Scottish weddings is men are the peacocks. Like men are the people like that stand out the most. I mean, obviously my wife is going to stand out better than everybody, but otherwise, you know, it's just going to be the men. Like everybody else is just going to be below us, which is fine.
Yeah, I got the fancy little purse flapper too, you know.
Like it's called a sporran, and don't call it a purse flapper when you get here, please.
Cameron always wears those. The
I know, exactly.
What are you talking about?
My dad's gonna get stabbed in Scotland.
So we've got a question here from Jerry Patterson. With big multi-threaded universes, how do you keep the logical timeline straight and coordinated across authors? You want to go first on that, Cameron?
Sure. I would say you don't.
You did like crazy stuff on Snakebite, and that's probably what he's talking about.
Yeah, of course. But I think it's a bit of a misnomer to think that like it's all executed in a kind of a pure way. Really, I think so much of what we're able to accomplish is how we adapt. So keeping them straight was never the goal, because I think one of the foibles that a lot of authors get into, and some really good, like the really good ones can do this because they know the full scope of their whole story. But I've read a lot of books where I can predict what's going to happen, within a couple chapters, right? Same with shows. There's a lot of different things where I can pick apart. I know where the plot's going to go. It doesn't necessarily mean it's not a story I won't read or watch, but it does kind of take away some of the enjoyment. And part of that's because I'm an author and I'm very good at kind of like reading storylines. But I do think your average reader is a lot smarter than most authors give them credit for. And I think that they can pick that up. So one of the things that I think Shane and I excel at with our stories is that we don't really let the stories themselves get codified until kind of way late in the game. We'd like to build organic stories. And then the trick, the hard part, and this is where the multi-threaded universes bit comes in, is our ability to then see what the other one's doing and adjust course and try and do it in a way where it like equally engages and makes people really interested to see what happens next. But there's a reason why there's so many like mystery elements and open-ended Easter eggs and and things like that people go nuts for in these series. And a large part of it is because we're constantly kind of writing the most interesting story we can without worrying so much about writing a story that everybody's seen before. Now, Snakebite was a bit different because Snakebite was trying to take all of those elements, all of these things that Shane and I had done, where we'd spread out the narrative and say, okay, a lot of these things were intentional, but how do we tell you that in a story, right? Without just picking a couple things and addressing it in one book. And the answer was to do the time hopping. And I hope there's no spoilers at this point, because hopefully everybody that's on here has either read it or will be reading it. But that was like the big goal, was being able to jump around and kind of tie up those loose ends that we'd kind of created on our own. Several of which like were planned for a really long time. But they were planned in like an open-ended sense, and it wasn't like, I will take care of this in this book, or I'll take care of this, 5 books down the line. It was, we're just going to address it as it comes, make it as it's relevant.
Yeah, and we had different ways that we were going to try and answer some of those too. Where we're like, okay, we'll get to that 2 books after this one, and then the story, the characters kind of like, because at least in my books, I'll tell Cameron or the editor what's going to happen, and then they plan their stories or whatever around that, and then they get the book and they're like, this is not at all what the hell you just told me. No. Nate's doing something totally different that I didn't expect, and it's amazing, but that's not at all what you said. And so a lot of times I kind of let my characters run wild to some extent. And that's
I've learned not to write a book until Shane has finished his book.
He's told me
like, I won't try. I think there's a couple of them, maybe like around between 5 and 7 in that range of books where like Shane had said, here's the arc, here's the next 3 books, these are the storyline I'm going to go with. And then I started writing like, okay, cool, they're all going to be integrated. And then it was like, no, nothing was like it. And so I had to go back and say, okay, and we're wheeling that backwards, But I think after that, I was like, I kind of realized, and that kind of goes exactly what I was saying about the adaptability, was like, up until that point, I hadn't really realized how necessary it would be, because the first 4 books, Shane was basically looking over my shoulder the whole time to make sure everything was aligned, and he wasn't writing anything new over that span. Mm-hmm. So like, we didn't really run into the issue until books 5 through 7. And after that is, I think, when we started to really kind of jive with like, you go, I go, with realizing that like, if he threw some crazy wrench into a story, that didn't mean that my books would suffer. In fact, often it gave me an opportunity to do something equally kind of cool and leap off to kind of take my story in a completely new direction.
Yep. So it definitely gets harder as more books come along.
Yeah.
Like it was a lot easier when we're both on book 4 or 5 or 6, or if I was on book 7 and he's on book 3, it was a lot easier then. Now there's 45 creeping up on 50 books. So there's still more to come. So yeah, we do have to coordinate a lot more and not go as wild as I typically sometimes making things up, or at least I have to tell him the moment I decide to do that. So good answer. So I've got, so I'll just answer this one real quick. It was in the email I just sent out last night to the email readers. And then I think I posted it in the group as well. If not, I'll post it in there. But audio, when is audio coming out? So I think there's 4 audiobooks that were on Argento's website that I was doing it this morning, where I was moving them from our website to Audible. And then I've got more to do right after this. So Audible will, at that point, Audible runs its course, and they take a couple days, 5 days, 10 days. That's up to them. I don't know, but I should have them all uploaded today. Some already are. So it'll be very quick. And then side note, Hunter Blaine's audiobook is finished recording, his newest one, finished recording. We're getting it mastered right now, and then I'll be submitting that to Amazon within a couple days. So audio is coming. I know it's been a while with the changes that with Lane leaving and stuff like that. I've had to juggle a lot more than I thought I would. Thought it'd be a lot easier, but I think I've got the hang of it all now. So
it turns out you're paying him for a reason.
Yes.
Yes. But just before you jump over, I'm just gonna, because I know people are gonna ask this. The audiobook for Snakebite, because I guarantee people are gonna get Yuletide's audiobook and then immediately be like, all right, but where's Snakebite? Because the people who do audiobooks, to their credit, they usually do them very exclusively. So like they'll be waiting until it shows. So I'm just going to give them a quick heads up. I've been in contact with Amanda, who does the narration for it on Facebook. And she's, if you're not following her, go ahead. It's Amanda Lee Cobb. She's fantastic. She's doing multiple series at the moment. She thinks that she'll be able to get to it. I think she's finishing on one book, then another book, and then she'll be jumping on ours. So hopefully it'll be out in, within a couple months, maybe sooner if she can get to it sooner, which is always, always the hope. But just so that it's not that we're sitting on it and we're waiting or anything like that. It's out, it's published. That's great. But she's getting more and more in demand every day. So we're now having to kind of run against her deadlines, which is totally fair. The better that she does, the better we do. So we're happy for her. But just so that you guys know what's going on.
And she's an amazing narrator. Doesn't she work for Cassandra Clare as well?
I think it's Sarah J. Moss.
Oh, Sarah Moss. Okay. I was going to say that first, and I was like, I don't know if that's right. But yeah, she's a big deal, guys. So if you haven't checked out the audiobooks, you've got 12 to catch up on before the book 13 will go. So they're all available. But but here's a compliment. Anyone who likes Argento books will certainly enjoy a shoplifter's guide to wizardry.
Hey, I like that.
There you go.
There you go.
And then someone else said, Julie Green said, from the 80s, would rather forget.
Only focus on the things that, that you remember.
Really good stuff. Yeah.
Clearly. Anything that's a haze or fuzzy, just.
There's one for Ty. It says, how thrilled are you to be a grandpapa?
I am super thrilled.
Twice over.
Cameron's son is my second, and I have another one who's 2 years old, and he lives close by. I wish Cameron were closer so I could spend more time with him and his family, but it's a lot of fun. And the beauty of it is I can be, an extension of the playroom with the kids and have a great time and stuff. And then when I'm tired, I can give them back to mom and dad.
So
I look forward to being a granddad.
You get to do all the fun stuff. I'll sugar them up and then let it go.
Yep. Or just knowing that, eventually like bedtime will be somewhere else. Sounds like pretty good deal. So I say that my son sleeps through the night, for 10 hours a night. So it's not like it's a huge struggle or anything like that.
So we got, Pony Boy is a cutie. A bunch of people are saying they had no idea. There's a couple that said they kind of thought something like that would be true, but they weren't sure. We've got
it's not real unless they have proof.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Ty, you haven't read all of your son's books?
I can just as easily flip that around and say my son hasn't read all of my books.
Oh, you mean like Lorraine said?
Um,
The readers already caught it. They already.
That's right. That's right. I did. I think I read the first about the first number of Nate books and the first number of Quinn books. I think I read about the first 5 of each. And then, I rarely stick with anybody all the way through, no matter what, anyway, because my attention span is just not that great. But yeah, I enjoyed them both. So yes, I have read enough to have a really good feel. And earlier in the day in Cameron's writing, I was one of the people that went through his stuff and read it and went, "Oh, my head hurts. This is so cerebral."
Oh, he can kill that right now. I've read so many first drafts of so many first books. Like,
he has
read and reread. So he has had to read my stuff. But the thing is, our styles are a bit different in so much as when I'm done with something, I'm usually done with something. When my dad is done with something, he's about 3.5 months away from being done with something. So
attention to detail is not my forte. And I did read your Vent Light series, the opening book, and I really enjoyed that a lot. So yeah.
It's also an interesting thing. I know what you read.
Full disclosure here. Cameron is a trained writer for a reason. I mean, the education that he got to help him do that. He really writes with a sophistication and things like that. I'm a good writer with a great imagination. I think he has those things going for him, but he's a better writer. It's just the truth. I've
just had to work. I mean, to be fair, my dad is a phenomenally better teacher than I probably ever could have hoped to be. And that alone, I mean, if you take the two things by comparison, I mean, I think, books have a chance to touch a lot of lives. They have a chance to entertain a lot of people. What my dad does, he may not have said this, but he's got a doctorate in education at that level. And the amount of lives he's been able to positively impact far outweigh, honestly, anything I'll probably ever be able to do as a writer. I mean, I hope, right? Like, it'd be great if my books eventually get, that kind of positive outreach. But what you're able to do impacting young people is I think, by far more spectacular than honestly anything that we do. Even though, we love it and we get paid for it. And that's, basically like getting handed money, which is great.
It's true. All right, here's one for you guys. So I'll hop out here while you do that.
Okay, Dad, you want to take this first?
See if I can figure out how to get rid of me.
I don't know that I don't need to motivate you to write. Sometimes we talk about scheduling and routines and how to juggle all the things that you have to do in life and figure out a time to write. That's what you and I talk about, on your end and mine. You've been very helpful in my writing over time. I mean, you've I don't know that you had to motivate me to write, but certainly
I had to motivate you to publish.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you were a big part of that. Even back with the Dragon books, and even back before that, some of the things that I wrote when I was still going back to school. So yeah. For everybody's edification, in terms of my dad's process, because I'm very aware of it. He gets up every damn day, and how many hours? 2? Like a good day, you spend 2 hours working. If I'm at school teaching, I get there before 6. I write, I walk, and then building opens, and I sit down for about an hour or so before I start my day at 7. And then on weekends, I typically get up really early, and I write most of the time about 3 hours a day on the weekends, more as I get closer to finishing a book or during the summer.
Right. So for everybody that is kind of curious about process, Shane and I are a bit start and stop. At least I used to be. I can't anymore with a kid. So I'm very much I have to be a lot more regimented. And Shane might be more regimented than I think he is. But for most authors, I think it'll be a bit of the start and stop. When you feel motivated, when you have the interest. Shane, you can go and chime in. Start and stop or regimented.
I'm not regimented at all. It's the way I typically write is mine's way different from how most people do it. Like what Ty does, I would much rather do that. And what you can do, I'd much rather do that because it's more disciplined, and I'm working on it. That's what I've been practicing lately, but it's not natural for me. So it takes work. What I typically do is say, okay, tomorrow's a writing day, turn on the music, put on the headphones, throw the phone in the, or, put the phone to the side and just go. And it's just an endurance thing, like go as long as you can. Don't stop, that's it. And then you'll get a bunch of words done. And to me, it's easier to do that because I focus so strongly on the characters. And so I can keep that emotion. Like I'm in it. I am what Nate's feeling, right? I am Jack's filthy spleen or whatever the so like I am in the moment. And so everything I type is raw and genuine and authentic. And so that's why it works for me, is if I keep stopping and going, then I snap out of the character's head and it feels kind of two-dimensional. But that's just the way my brain works. So it's not a critique on anybody. It's much easier for me to get in the flow. And when I do that, I can have killer days where I just write a ton, and it's very well written. There's grammatical stuff that needs to be fixed, but the story and the flow and everything is it's great. So that works better for me, but it's not ideal because then you got to shut everything out for 15, 16 hours. That's not really possible when you have kids and all that stuff. So yeah, different strokes for different folks. But sorry, I was trying to find some other ones here. Here you go. What does Ty plan on teaching Ponyboy when he's a little older?
You know what? My kids never wanted to have me coach them. They never wanted me to teach them. They wanted me to be a playmate. And I imagine I will be a playmate for Ponyboy. We'll go out and we will have a lot of fun together. Grandpa will be a hoot. And that's what it'll be. I won't be, I'll be the fun one. So whatever I teach him will be whatever we can do playing.
There you go.
I'll chime in. What I want him to teach him is handiness, like the capacity to do handyman activities. Because one of the things, and it's not for lack of trying, so it's not like I can say that my dad didn't try and do that for me. It's just that I didn't pick any of it up. I picked up the artistic stuff, which is great. You know what I mean? Like I can draw, I can write, a lot of those elements. But man, I can change a tire and stuff now, but I couldn't change a tire until I was like 21. You know what I mean? Like the kinds of stuff that like he showed me, I didn't understand it, didn't learn it, didn't internalize it. It would be super great because I know I'm not handing that shit down. If he could teach him how to do some of my dad builds things all the time out of wood, and does a lot of the work around the house. So I would really prefer it if he was able to pass some of those tricks along so that way, I can have my son fix my house.
Well, that's largely because I'm a cheap bastard and I don't like to pay people.
Yeah. I've been a part of those projects. I just didn't learn anything on them.
Okay. We've got people thanking you for your service, Ty. Their dad.
Absolutely. It was a pleasure. It was an honor to serve.
Yep. And then we've got, was it Cameron who encouraged Ty to join the Argento team? And what did he say to Shane to get him to sign Ty up to the team?
Do it or I quit.
Do it or else I'll kill Quinn in the next book.
Yeah. She's done. Never writing her again. No, I actually it didn't take much convincing so much as it was putting the material in front of Shane, because Shane's process, and Shane, you can chime in if I'm wrong or if I'm getting this incorrect somehow. When he's reviewing new work, is to find talented people, but also talented people kind of within spheres that he recognizes and with stories that he would like to read and be interested in. So when I told him that my dad was working on, a magic series set in the 80s, I thought, it might be something up his alley that he'd be interested in. And then it kind of took off from there. So I'll let you guys chime in on the rest. But basically, I encouraged my dad in the sense that, he had options to go and potentially traditional publish it or publish it with Argento. And one of the things we had seen, between Shane and I and all the other authors in the lane was just kind of the inefficiencies of traditional publishing and the time frames and how easy it is for them to drop you if you're not doing well. And I thought, passing him over to Shane would be a much better use of his time and energy.
Yeah. I mean, I read a bunch of sample stuff, the earlier things that he had written, not Dancing the Magic, the Dragon.
Modern Dragon Chronicles.
I can remember the series name, the Modern Dragon Chronicles. And I put a link up in the comments too, I believe. And I'll probably post something so you guys can check that out if you want to read some cool YA stuff. But I read that, and I knew some other projects he was kind of doing on the side for fun. And I just knew I knew he was good. And so I was like, well, yeah, I mean, if you can write something that's a little bit more, not my taste, but something that I know how to market, something that's got a little bit of humor, snark, that kind of stuff. Then I can help you. If not, I don't know if I can help you. Because if it was like high fantasy, for example, I'm not sure how to market high fantasy yet. I'd have to work on it. So yeah, but it was just a mutual thing. Like, obviously I knew Cameron, I've known Cameron for years. And so, by extension, his family. So it was kind of a no-brainer.
Yeah. I mean, it was a wonderful opportunity, and I'm very appreciative of it. And again, my stuff is different. But it's still in the wheelhouse. It's still urban fantasy, and it has a lot of the elements that Shane was speaking about. And it's not exactly what you're reading in Templeverse, but that's a good thing.
Yes.
And even in Templeverse, we're not completely in step, especially not so much anymore. Right? Yeah. You're getting very different feels between Nate and Callie, between Nate, Callie, and Quinn. So, hopefully people are kind of able to parse out and diversify and be interested in different, different variety of things.
Well, that's the whole point, is to make sure it's different and unique. It's not a reprint of Nate Temple every time. I mean, that'd be dumb. No one would do that. So all I meant is that it's something that they can relate, and they can say, oh yeah, I kind of get that humor. I kind of get a little bit of that, but then I'm getting something new and fresh as well. And so that's kind of what I wanted. So.
Yeah, no, and I'm I don't know if I said enough, but I'm very grateful, because this has been a great opportunity. And there's things that I have looked at traditional in the past, and the reality is I have a limited attention span, a limited amount of time. And if I were going to take on some of those things, which are so monumental, and trying to do this myself, or going out there and trying to hook an agent, doing all those things, I don't want to do that. I just want to write.
Exactly.
That's what I want to do. I have enough time with all my other hobbies and stuff. I want to write.
Yep. That's how most authors feel. So it's understandable. And then we've got, it doesn't say who it is, but what else do you have planned, Ty, aside from Shoplifters?
So Shane and I and Cam, they all know about this. We talked about another series based upon some real true life crime kind of things, and bringing in some paranormal aspects to it. And I have a couple books that I feel pretty good about, that I've worked on for years. And I think at some point when the timing's right, we'll sit down and see if that's something that we can move forward with. But I do have another series that I really want to look at. Maybe, I don't know, I won't put a time limit on it. I won't say, but there's some interesting things. There's some real life crime out there that you can put some fantastical elements and marry the two, and it's pretty fascinating, engaging. So that's where I'd like to get that in the mix at some point, I think.
It's a good one. I'm excited to hear about that one. I mean, well, I've heard about it, but I'm excited to see where it goes. So here's one for all of us. Is there a character in a fellow Argento author's verse that you would love to take in a new direction? If they were, I already know what Cameron's answer is. If they were yours to manipulate.
I bet you don't.
I was going to say Alucard, because you always ask.
No. Okay. So Alucard was my second. My first one, but then I was like, this is just obnoxious and shitty of me, would be Nate.
Oh, no.
I was like, yeah. I'll take him. I'll take him for a whirl. We'll have some fun. I'll give him back to Shane once I'm done. I'll write 5 Nate books, take in the proceeds, and then, he can do whatever he wants.
Exactly. If I was looking, I would say I really like, I would say Cameron's characters. I would think, man, it's hard. That's tough. Why don't you go, Ty? If you have an answer, I'll keep chewing on Cameron's, because there's a couple that I'd like.
I don't know that I would do much, because my memory of Quinn, she was really in flux.
Yeah.
So she was changing so much in those first 5 books that I don't know where exactly she is right now. So I'm not really sure what I would do with her. In some respects, she's a little like my character. She does some really dumb things, can be her own worst enemy at times. I would kind of bitch slap Nate, I think, from the early books.
Exactly the point. That's exactly
because he's like one of those frat boys that I knew, that I probably would have wanted to thump him. Of course, that would have been really dumb because he could have, incinerated me or something like that. But but I know he matured and stuff in later books, so
Yeah.
he got to where I liked him a lot better later on. I liked him a lot better in time.
Yeah, and that was always the intent, is to make him just almost completely unlikable in the beginning, and then have him basically fall on his ass and try to get back up better.
Yeah.
But if I was picking one, I'd probably say Cathal. I think Cathal.
Yeah.
I think he'd be really fun. Like
that'd be a fun one for you to write. You'd like him. I was trying to think. I was like, honestly, the ones that you'd want to pick are like my most humorous characters. Like anyone I wrote that was particularly, and we did that for the record. For those of you who don't know, Last Call was I wrote that in Shane's house, sitting next to him, where he was telling me, "No, Cameron, you can't make that joke. Like that's too far." Which is telling you like the level that we were at when it was like Shane was like, no, you can't call that. What was it was something like, it was the club that Dorian was going to. And it was like, I don't remember what we decided on, but it was, we were coming up with some really raunchy titles for that.
All the jokes for a back alley bar. And so we're like,
that served a certain clientele, to be clear.
And so we had a whole bunch of stereotypical jokes that were highly inappropriate, but highly hilarious.
Yeah. That was good times. As far as from mine, I would actually say, so like I've stolen a bunch of Shane's, to be honest. So it's not like I can say that any particular, but as far as pulling somebody kind of in a new direction, he's probably right. Alucard would be one, but only because I kind of integrated him so well with my character that they actually, I think the chemistry for those make a lot of sense and are a lot of fun. From my dad's books, I mean, Jen's a great character. It's really forceful personality, but I think I would probably go with the surfers from his Dragon Chronicles. I know it's random, and those of you who haven't read it, you won't know, but he'll know. Like in the same kind of vein as like what I was saying with Shane, they're so stereotypical, but in kind of like the most fun way. They were kind of space cadet-y, but they were like ready to show up and like do battle against the forces of evil. You know what I mean? And I thought they were great because they were kind of the exact characters that you want for an urban fantasy series, right? People that are like on the fringes of society, but can roll with the punches when shit goes just completely haywire. You know what I mean? Like your average person would be like, this can't be possible. Like we can't handle it. And they were like, nah, we got it. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah. Get in the van. We got to go. Like the demons are coming. You know what I mean? Like that kind of thing. I thought they were fantastic when I was reading them when I was younger. And I think they're fantastic now. So those are the ones I would steal.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
We've got probably time for one more. It's a good one too. Scott Trail asks, do you start with a philosophical point you want to build on in each book, or does that develop as you write each book? And
Shane, why don't you go ahead and start? Because you're the...
So I definitely do this, but maybe not the way you're thinking. I don't try to prove a point or push a point or preach a point. What I try to do is I try to find a problem in society or in a friend that I know or some kind of thing that they're struggling with, some kind of demon basically that someone's got around me or I've seen on the TV or a show or just some kind of concept that's troubling people. And I'll think of that, and then I'll think about the philosophy of that and the etymology of what that fear means or what that demon is. And then from that demon thought process of me thinking of that bad emotion as a demon, then I'll start looking into the historical reference of demons that could do that or mythological creatures that could do that. So I take a really backwards approach where I think of a problem a lot of people have, and then I start trying to symbolize it into mythology or philosophy or any faith or something like that. And then I say, okay, I understand all that now. How can I make a character that's going through that same problem, but make it even more fantastical? Or in that, because I picked up a bunch of new mythological characters over here that I hadn't thought about writing. Now I can put those in a story with this new character or one of the main characters that's going through depression or whatever the concept is that I picked. And then how do you get past that? How do you defeat that if it's actually personified rather than just in your head? And so I kind of make those fears and depressions and any kind of negative emotions, problems people or struggles they have, I turn it into something fantastical and real with mythology and myth and magic. And then I have my characters face it and get their asses kicked, but then somehow beat it. And so I try to take the hero's journey and just kind of twist it up a little bit and make it a little different. So I'm definitely never preaching anything. I'm never trying to tell someone this is the right way to be. My character will typically try 3 or 4 different ways to overcome, and maybe 1 or 2 work, maybe 1 or 2 don't. So I just kind of like throwing that thought processes out there, kind of like mental riddles, I guess you could say. So that's how I approach it.
Dad, do you want to
go? Sure. I don't set out ahead of time. My characters kind of discover things as they're going along. I do have little nuggets, like out of the mouth of babes kind of thing, where somebody will say something profound. I think, ooh, that's profound.
You can tell when they highlight it.
I hope they get it.
Yeah.
But no, I don't think so. It's just organic. They're doing their thing. I think people every day have insights, but there's not a grand arc of something that I want to get to people. Typically, it's just the day-to-day things that they do and the things that they learn about living that I try to incorporate.
Great. Yeah. So from my perspective, I don't really tackle philosophy much at all. I know it may not seem like that because there are going to be elements kind of similar to my dad's where conversations between characters and so on will kind of touch on philosophical points. But my approach to writing is really analytical. I try to think a lot more about psychology and like base human motivations when I'm writing. So, there are authors out there that like classically known, Terry Goodkind, Ayn Rand, can never figure that out. That are known for that, for basically saying like this book is like an amalgamation of like a specific idea kind of played out, right? And some of them I really like. Fountainhead's one of my favorite books, but I think what moves the best of those along are really interesting characters. And so I think for me, so much of what I like to write and like to read are people with kind of like fascinating backgrounds, fascinating stories, fascinating ways of thinking, and having that kind of manifest itself in books. The urban fantasy genre, I got into with Laurel K. Hamilton and Jim Dresden. Or I should say Jim Butcher, Harry Dresden. Yeah, I don't know why you're laughing, Shane. This happens every time people talk about you. They're like, Shane, I mean Nate. I mean Nate, I mean Shane. And funnily enough, I'm pretty sure Butcher's like 6'4", and like, I mean, I don't think he's but I do think he like modeled Dresden after himself. But like what makes them really interesting, or at least I always thought so, was that they had kind of a really kind of twisted mental state that they were operating from in the midst of all of this, crazy magic and everything else. And so I don't really go with any kind of philosophical perspectives in any of my books. If someone gleans one from them, I would honestly, I would say you're more likely seeing kind of not my stance necessarily, but like a stance on socioeconomics and certain backgrounds. I did that a lot with Cinders and Salt, where I talked about, kind of the things that impact the poor, the things that the rich get away with, this kind of thing, which I guess you can apply to philosophy, but really I think you can apply it to kind of the social structure of our world. And I find those things really fascinating. And I try to write about those because I like them.
Yeah. I think another thing too is one reason I'm careful with philosophy and any kind of preaching is it can make this story really it just makes the reader snap out because they're like, this is too real. This is too heavy. I'm here for entertainment, not a lesson. And so that's why I always try to throw in humor. Like if I want to use the Minotaur, I'll make him a Buddhist. And like, I always try to just break up the heavy parts to just have fun too. Because I know the readers are there to be entertained, not to be preached. So, so it's a fine line, but yeah, so I think we've gone a little bit over, but this has been a blast. I think all the links are already posted in the Den of Freaks on my Facebook page and everything like that, but I will double check, make sure I haven't missed any. Snakebite is live on Amazon, on KU as well. So we finally got that fixed. And then Ty's book is available on argentobookstore.com. If I read the link, it's like 25 little add-ons on the end. So just go to Argento Bookstore, you'll see it. But book 5, Dancing in the Magic, it's available for $1 less than it will be on Amazon, and it's available right now, so you don't have to wait. If you get it on Amazon, you got to wait till July 5th, and it'll be $1 more, but then it'll be in KU, all that stuff too. So it's just whatever works for you guys. Either way, we ask that you please go leave reviews for Snakebite right now, everywhere you can. BookPub, Goodreads, Amazon, especially Amazon, but it doesn't have to be a book report. It doesn't have to be anything complicated. You don't have to do some high school senior year thesis or anything. Just a couple sentences to say this.
Doesn't have to be 5 stars. I mean,
it doesn't. Yeah, we'll take whatever kind of review you want. Doesn't matter. But just, hey, I really like this character. It's a really cool story. So whatever you want. Nothing crazy, but it makes a big difference in the algorithms. So review that. Snakebite you can review now. Ty, you have to wait till July 5th just because it's not available to be reviewed yet. You might be able to review it on Goodreads, though.
You can, I think, yeah. As long as it's published, as long as somebody throws it on there and says it's out and it's available, you can start reviewing on Goodreads.
We'll look into that. We might have to upload that. But yeah, so review audios are coming. I'm doing that. Doing it this morning. Doing it right now. There's a couple book orders and stuff that were delayed as well. I just sent all those out this morning, so apologies for that. But those are all sent out now. What have I missed? July 5th, or if you go to Amazon for Ty's book, it is available for pre-order right now. So you can go there and you can pre-order it. It just won't come out till July 5th, and then it'll be on KU. So, but yeah, so we've got father and son, and we had grandson for a minute. So
yeah, he's out crying right now. So I'll be heading over there as soon as this is over.
So he's still part of the broadcast then. He's still part of the Facebook Live. So
yeah. I'm sure if people are tuning in on their headsets there, they can hear it in the background.
Yep. So, but no, it was awesome talking to you guys. I really appreciate it. And I hope everyone had a good time. Again, review. And I think that's it. Unless you guys had anything you wanted to say or push. I know, Ty, you've got another book coming out. Like what, next week?
Yeah. Well, I suddenly was informed today that I have to have the cover information ready for tomorrow.
That's true.
No, I'm probably 2/3, 3/4 done with book 6.
Okay.
So we're hoping that it'll.
This is what happens when you write every morning, Shane. Yeah, this is what we're missing out on, man.
I know. Tell me about it. That's one reason I'm trying to work on it. So yeah.
So,
All right, guys. Well, it's been a blast, and I know, Cameron, it's creeping up on evening time for you.
Yeah, bedtime.
There you go. Well, you have a great one, and thanks for joining us, everybody.
Thank you.
All right.
Bye, guys.